Robert Crawford was a pilot serving in No. 12 Squadron of the RAAF when the Japanese attacked Darwin in 1942. Soon after, he was posted to 75 Squadron to fly newly acquired Kittyhawks out of Port Moresby as the Japanese continued to push south toward Australia. On the 24th of April, 1942, Flight Sergeant Crawford was on a cover patrol with Flight Lieutenant Les Jackson over Port Moresby. Because they had been in the air for some time, they had to land their aircraft to refuel as a raid alert came in. After refueling, Crawford and Jackson took off to engage enemy Zeros, harassing an American bomber flying overhead. Here's Bob recalling the story.
This particular stage, I was flying number 2 to the CO, and we were doing standing patrol over Moresby, and the word came through that there was a raid coming in. We'd been up about an hour and a half, and were just about due to be relieved, and they scrambled at what aircraft we had on the ground, and they went up past, sort of wave as they went past us at 10,000 feet, and they went up and they got up to 20-odd thousand feet. And they had aircraft on the ground, but trying to repair them. But we stopped at 10,000 feet to try to prevent not Wirraways, but Zeros coming that would strafe the camps and all that business. And we were there, but eventually, after about 2 hours and whatnot, we were light on fuel, and we were forced to have to land to refuel, which you don't do in the middle of a raid or when there's a raid allegedly coming in. And we couldn't land on the 7-mile strip, and the CO and I landed on this 3-mile strip, which was 7-mile strip indicated 7 miles from Moresby, 3 miles indicated 3 miles from Moresby, and a place called Kittyhawk, where the American Squadron of A-24 dive bombers were. We landed there and refueled as quick as we possibly could, and then took off straight away. This strip was right on the water, and on the mainland on the water. And as we took off, we only got to about 500 feet, as I said, going in a westerly direction, and this American B-26 Martin Marauder bomber was going flat chat eastwise with a number of Zeros on his tail, and the CO and I we were just coming out of a sort of a turn off the deck, and we flew straight into the Zeros and fired at them, and literally we just put our wheels up and whatnot, and we were still in a climbing configuration, which would be no more than about 140 mile an hour with your nose up, and very vulnerable, and you could not very manoeuvrable. You needed speed to pull a Kittyhawk around. You can pull it around, but you'd finish up at 500 feet. You wouldn't have enough time if you got into difficulties to recover. And in trying to do that and shoot at Zeros and get away from Zeros, finished up where I had a couple of Zeros on my tail at 500 feet with me trying to outrun them, and I couldn't manoeuvre to outturn them because it was impossible for me to outturn them, and eventually I was just being peppered right and left with the machine gun from, fortunately I don't think they had cannon, but the aircraft was particularly or continuously being hit with their machine gun fire, and there was petrol on the floor, and the rudder bars sort of got struck by machine guns, and eventually I thought it was like I had to do something, and I was going to land on the land, and at first I was going to jump out, but I couldn't because I was at less than 500 feet, and I couldn't land because I was going too fast. And eventually I thought, well, I'll have to ditch in the water just to escape. And the only thing that I saved myself, I think, was I had a great armour plate at the back for the pilot protection, and I kept pressing myself back up against as far as I could to keep away from the bullets that were entering the cockpit. And I successfully ditched in the aircraft, and it sank almost immediately, which when I went to get out of the aircraft, I still had my parachute on, and so I had to put that back. And when I disconnected the parachute and got out, the aircraft had sunk completely out of the way, and I was in the water, and I think it sank into I don't know what depth of water, but about 6 inches of the top of the tail stuck out of the water. So I sort of swam along the fuselage and sort of got on the tail and sort of ducked in the water. I thought I was going to be strafed and whatnot in the water, but the Zeros went and strafed a couple of Catalinas which were at mooring in the water. One of the how lucky I was, I found later that when they pulled me out of the water, the ambulance, I was bleeding a bit from shrapnel that was into the cockpit, but they discovered that my oxygen mask, which was around my neck and whatnot, and my throat mic had been, the oxygen mask had been shattered whilst it was around my neck, and which I still have the buckle of it, and which I'll show you later. It was around my neck, and my throat mic had been dented where a bullet had gone past it and grazed my neck. So I was a very lucky pilot. So I lived to fight another day. So that was it. It was just my time wasn't up.